2019 World Rugby Player of the Year, Pieter-Steph Du Toit will captain the Springboks against Wales in a once-off test match at Twickenham in London on Saturday afternoon. Du Toit also captained the Boks when they played Wales in 2018 in Washington, D.C. Now, the match day 23 features 4 uncapped players, with the Lions duo of Edwin van der Merwe starting at wing and Jordan Hendricks starting at fly half. The Stormers pair of lock Ben Jason Dixon and utility back Sasha Ngomezulu will play from the bench. The matchday squad boasts 10 players who featured in the 2023 Rugby World Cup final. Tight-head prop Vincent Koch will win his 50th cap for the Boks. There is a 5-3 split on the bench between forwards and backs, which includes 4 World Cup winners in Bongi Mbonambi, Frans Malherbe, Grant Williams and Damien de Alanda. All right, now let's bring in rugby analyst Dan Retief to weigh in on the Springbok squad announced earlier by Boks coach Rassie Erasmus. Thank you so much, Dan, for your time. Now, let's start with what you make then of the squad picked by Rassie today.
Yeah, I think it's what it says straight away is the immense depth that South Africa has in its rugby at the moment. You know, we could almost pick a side that is better than the one that's been picked of players who are not available at the moment. You know, for instance, Andre Pollard, the World Cup fly-off, he's not available. Siya Kolisi, our captain, World Cup winner twice, he's not available, he's in France, and a number of others, you know. So it says South Africa has great depth. So the interesting selection, I think, was Jordan Hendricks at fly half. He was it's unexpected selection. They've been talking about others. The feeling was that Manie Libbok would get that position now. And I'm just wondering whether Jordan Hendricks, who's had a really good season for the Lions and he's a most accomplished player, his brother, of course, is already a Springbok, Jaden Hendricks, whether that is an indication of the influence of Tony Brown, the All Black coach and former player who's come into the Springbok squad as the attack coach, whether there's something he wants to see. And then Edwin van der Merwe, that's a really nice selection because it shows players that if you play well during the season and you perform, you can reach the Springbok heights, you know. So, and he gets in obviously because a lot of wings are not available. The great Cheslin Colby is not available. Kanan Moody, Kurt Lee Arendse, they're not there. So he gets another chance, as does Mapimpi on the other wing, you know. Then those are the 2 new caps in the starting side. So they will be Springboks. They already know they're going to get to wear the jersey. Then on the bench, and these days if you get onto the bench you tend to get a cap. So there's on the bench Sasha Feinstein Ngomezulu. He's a boy from the Cape, from Bishops. I saw him play fly off at school, and the feeling there is I think that they get to bring him on and give him a run at fly half, and to see how he goes at that. He's a most accomplished player. Jason Dixon is a flanker who will come off the bench. He's a player in the mold of Pieter-Steph Du Toit. So another interesting selection. And there again, you know, if you look at the loose forwards that South Africa has that are available to us, it's just incredible. You know, the players who are not available at the moment and the players who could come into the side. So in terms of the loose forwards, they've obviously gone with Pieter-Steph as the captain. He gets a second chance, having the one game as captain in 2018 in Washington, D.C., the USA. He gets another chance. So he's got a score to settle with Wales because that test was lost. And for the rest, I think we're seeing the Springboks go with an experimental backline and a very experienced pack of forwards.
And I'm glad you mentioned, you know, Pieter-Steph having captained for the Boks when they played Wales in 2018, because I was going to ask you about the kind of experience he brings and the form that he is in currently. But perhaps let's talk about Wales then. I mean, they've been in good form for some time and, you know, the squad has grown.
Yeah, and they in a transitional period under Warren Gatland, their coach. Some people might actually make a joke and say Wales are always in a transition period. They're always rebuilding. It seems to be their standard excuse. The last time we played Wales was last year, and we actually won very well, 52-16. So the Welsh is a very interesting squad. It's not a squad that's known to us. It's not players that we're really familiar with. Obviously, some of them come out of the URC, but there is quite an interesting thing. Is they're playing a player called Botham, who happens to be the grandson of the great cricketer Ian Botham, and then on one of the flanks they're playing a youngster called Tane Plumtree. Now, Tane Plumtree is the son of the Sharks coach, John Plumtree, who's clearly chosen to make a career in Wales. So there is a South African connection. There always seems to be.
I don't know if you touched on it, Dan, but as we wrap our conversation, just very quickly talk about the omissions of, players like Sanele Nohamba, who was, just named the VURC Player of the Season, and of course, Hachiva Daimani. Just very briefly, if you can.
Yeah, I think Sanele is a very interesting one. He's had just a fabulous season. He's a great goal kicker. And there I think the thinking is that he's maybe on the small side. He's physically small, and they worry about whether he can defend the channel. In other words, in modern rugby, people run at the fly half quite hard. They set up forwards to run at the fly half, and that might be what counts against him. Hachiva, very interesting too, because he is so skilled. He brings so much to the game, and maybe the thinking there is that is a bit loose, that he doesn't commit to the really tight stuff. But as I said earlier, just when we in the position that players like the ones we've just mentioned, Sanele and Hachiva, can be left out of a squad, it tells you how strong our rugby is at the moment.
All right, I just want to squeeze this one last in. You mentioned earlier, of course, Siya Kolisi, and we know, of course, he's not in the country. But just in terms of term plans that Rassie has for, captaincy. And when you look at, of course, Siya Kolisi in terms of injuries and age, what are we likely to see there?
Yeah, I'm finding the talk around Siya quite interesting, because he's with Racing 92 in Paris. He's been injured. I see he took a bit of criticism this last weekend for being out of form. But Rassie seems to be sending a message to some of the older players, including Siya, that it might be time to move on, that he's starting to look at a new generation. And funny enough, going back to Pieter-Steph Du Toit as the captain, which harks back to 2018 when we played a test match in America, funny enough, against Wales. That was the build-up to the Japanese World Cup in 2019. And now Rassie seems to be going down the same path. He's asked Wales to give us a game in Twickenham, to start blooding a new squad, to start looking at new players. So I think he's sending a message to saying two things. I'm with you, the senior guys. I still believe in you, and you can still play in the side. But take note, there are people knocking on the door, and if it's possible, I will give them a chance. So I think for Rassie Erasmus, the biggest worry must be is how to meld his squad to get the best out of all the players he has available.